The security guard's hand pressed firmly against Marcus Thompson's chest, blocking his path to the memorial ceremony entrance. "Sir, you need to leave. This is a private military event." Marcus looked down at his worn civilian clothes, then at the sea of dress uniforms flowing past him into the building. "I served too," he said quietly. "I don't see any credentials. Move along." Behind him, families of fallen soldiers streamed toward the doors, their faces etched with grief and pride. Marcus had traveled 800 miles to be here, to honor his fallen brothers from Afghanistan. But apparently his presence wasn't welcome. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where we uncover the extraordinary moments that restore our faith in humanity and remind us that respect and recognition can come from the most unexpected places. Today's story proves that true honor transcends uniforms and titles. Let's uncover what really happened when a forgotten veteran was denied entry to a ceremony meant to honor heroes just like him. Marcus Thompson had enlisted in the Army straight out of high school in small-town Nebraska. No college plans, no clear direction, just a desire to serve his country and make something of himself. He spent 4 grueling years in the infantry, including 2 brutal deployments to Afghanistan, where he earned a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star for his actions during a Taliban ambush that saved 6 of his fellow soldiers. But war leaves invisible scars. When Marcus returned home, he struggled with PTSD and depression. The transition to civilian life proved harder than any battlefield. He bounced between jobs, battled addiction, and slowly lost touch with most of his military friends. His marriage crumbled, his savings disappeared. Eventually, he found himself living in a small apartment, working night shifts at a warehouse, forgotten by almost everyone who once called him brother. The only thing that kept him going was the memory of his fallen comrades, especially Sergeant David Rivera, who had died in his arms during that Taliban ambush. Rivera had been planning to propose to his girlfriend when they got home. He never got the chance. When Marcus saw the announcement for the memorial ceremony, honoring soldiers killed in Afghanistan, including Rivera, he knew he had to be there. He spent his last $100 on a bus ticket to Washington, D.C. He had no dress uniform anymore, no military ID, nothing to prove his service except the scars on his soul and the memories that haunted his dreams. Now he stood outside the ceremony, blocked by a security guard who saw only a disheveled civilian trying to crash a military event. "Look, I understand you want to pay your respects," the guard continued, "but this ceremony is for military personnel and families only. There are plenty of other ways to honor our fallen heroes." Marcus felt the familiar surge of anger and helplessness. "I was there when Rivera died. I held him while he bled out in the Afghan dirt. I earned the right to be here. Anyone can claim they served. Without proper identification, I can't let you in." Other veterans walking past began to notice the commotion. Some shot sympathetic glances at Marcus, but none stopped to help. They had their own grief to carry, their own demons to face. Why risk making a scene for a stranger? Marcus stepped back, defeated. He had hitchhiked the final 50 miles when his bus money ran short. He had slept in a park the night before, using his jacket as a pillow, all for this moment, this chance to say goodbye to Rivera properly. And now he was being turned away like a vagrant. He walked to a nearby bench and sat down heavily, watching through the glass doors as the ceremony began inside. He could see the honor guard presenting colors, families weeping over flag-draped photos of their loved ones. Rivera's photo was up there somewhere, among the faces of the honored dead. Marcus closed his eyes and whispered Rivera's name, feeling more alone than he had in years. Inside the building, the ceremony proceeded with military precision. Gold Star families sat in the front rows, clutching tissues and photographs. Behind them, rows of active duty personnel and veterans filled the hall. At the podium, a chaplain spoke about sacrifice and service, about the debt that could never be repaid. But outside, Marcus sat on his bench, excluded from the very community he had bled for. 20 minutes into the ceremony, a black sedan pulled up to the curb. A man in his 60s stepped out, wearing the dress blue uniform of a four-star general. His chest displayed decades of ribbons and decorations. This was General Patricia Hayes, the highest-ranking officer in attendance, a living legend who had commanded forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. She noticed Marcus immediately, sitting alone on the bench, staring at the building with hollow eyes. Something about his posture, the way he held himself, marked him as a soldier. She had seen that look too many times, in too many places. "Excuse me," she said, approaching the bench. "Are you all right?" Marcus looked up, startled. He quickly stood when he saw her stars. "Yes, ma'am. Just paying my respects from out here." "Why aren't you inside?" Marcus hesitated. "Security wouldn't let me in. I don't have my military ID anymore, and I'm not exactly dressed for the occasion." General Hayes studied his face more carefully. Despite the worn clothes and unkempt appearance, she saw something familiar in his eyes, the 1,000-yard stare, the weight of too many losses, the look of a man who had seen combat. "What's your name, soldier?" "Marcus Thompson, ma'am. Served with the 10th Mountain Division in Afghanistan." "What unit specifically?" 2nd Battalion, 87th Infantry Regiment. Deployed twice, 2018 and 2020. General Hayes nodded slowly. She knew that unit. They had seen heavy action during her command in the region. Good soldiers, tough fighters. "And you knew someone being honored today?" "Sergeant David Rivera. He died in my arms during a Taliban ambush in Kandahar province. Saved 6 of us by drawing fire while we evacuated wounded. He was 23 years old." The general's expression softened. She remembered that action report, a young sergeant's heroic sacrifice that allowed his squad to survive. She had personally signed the recommendation for his posthumous Silver Star. "Wait here," she said. General Hayes walked briskly to the entrance where the same security guard was still stationed. Her approach caused an immediate stir. Other personnel snapped to attention as she passed. "General Hayes, ma'am," the guard stammered. "Is there anything you need?" "Yes. There's a veteran outside who needs to be in this ceremony, Marcus Thompson. He served with honor in Afghanistan and has every right to be here." "Ma'am, he didn't have proper identification. We have protocols for—" "I'm vouching for him personally. Escort him inside immediately and find him a seat in the front section." "Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am." The guard hurried outside to where Marcus still sat on the bench, now looking confused as various personnel seemed to be rushing around. "Sir, General Hayes requests your presence inside, if you'll follow me." Marcus stood slowly, not quite believing what was happening. "I don't understand." "The general wants you in the ceremony, sir. She said you have every right to be here." Marcus walked back toward the entrance in a daze. At the doors, General Hayes was waiting for him. "Sergeant Thompson," she said, using his military rank with deliberate respect. "I served in Afghanistan during your deployments. I knew about Rivera's actions, and I know about soldiers like you who came home carrying invisible wounds. You belong in there more than most." She paused, looking directly into his eyes, and spoke 6 words that would change everything for him. "Thank you for your service, brother." But she didn't stop there. "Rivera's family is here today. His mother, Maria Rivera, traveled from California. She's been wanting to meet the soldiers who served with her son, especially the one who was with him at the end. Would you like me to introduce you?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I'd be honored, ma'am." They walked into the ceremony together, a 4-star general and a forgotten veteran. The sight caused heads to turn throughout the hall. General Hayes led him directly to the front section, where Rivera's mother sat clutching a folded flag. "Mrs. Rivera," the general said gently, "I'd like you to meet someone special. This is Marcus Thompson. He served with David in Afghanistan." Maria Rivera looked up with tear-filled eyes. She was a small woman in her 50s, wearing a black dress and her son's military photo pinned to her chest. "You knew my David," she whispered. Marcus knelt beside her chair, his own eyes now wet. Ma'am, your son was the best soldier I ever served with. He was funny, brave, and he talked about you every single day. He loved you so much. Were you there when—" She couldn't finish the question. Yes, ma'am, I was with him, and I want you to know that he wasn't in pain at the end. He asked me to tell you he loved you, and that he was sorry he couldn't keep his promise to come home. Maria Rivera broke down completely, and Marcus found himself holding her as she wept. Around them, other attendees watched in respectful silence as a mother and a veteran shared their grief. When the ceremony resumed, Marcus sat with Rivera's family. When David's name was called during the reading of the fallen, Marcus stood with Maria Rivera as she accepted a memorial plaque. When the bugler played taps, tears streamed down his weathered face. After the ceremony, something remarkable happened. Other veterans began approaching Marcus, sharing their own stories, welcoming him back into the brotherhood he thought he had lost. General Hayes introduced him to several military support organizations. By the end of the day, he had job leads, counseling resources, and most importantly, connections to other veterans who understood his struggles. Maria Rivera insisted on giving Marcus her phone number. David would have wanted us to stay in touch, she said. Your family now. As the crowd dispersed, General Hayes found Marcus one more time. Sergeant Thompson, I want you to have something. She handed him a business card. This is for a veteran support program I personally oversee. We help soldiers transition back to civilian life, find careers, deal with PTSD. Will you call them? Yes, ma'am. Thank you for everything today. No, thank you. For your service, your sacrifice, and for being there for Rivera when it mattered most. That's what real soldiers do for each other. Marcus took a bus back to Nebraska, but he was no longer the same defeated man who had been turned away at the door. He had been reminded of who he was, what he had given, and that his service mattered. He called the number General Hayes had given him. Within a month, he was enrolled in a job training program. Within 6 months, he had a stable job with a defense contractor who specifically hired veterans. Within a year, he was helping other struggling veterans find their way back to purpose and community. He stayed in regular contact with Maria Rivera, visiting her every year on the anniversary of David's death. She became like a mother to him, and he became like a son to her. Together, they honored David's memory by helping other military families cope with loss. Marcus also began speaking at veteran events, sharing his story of how he was almost excluded from a ceremony meant to honor soldiers like him, and how one general's compassion changed everything. His message was simple: every veteran matters, regardless of their current circumstances. 3 years later, Marcus was invited to speak at another military memorial ceremony. This time, he wore a borrowed dress uniform, stood at the podium with confidence, and delivered a speech about the importance of taking care of our veterans long after the shooting stops. In the audience sat General Hayes, now retired but still advocating for veteran services. After his speech, she approached him with a smile. You clean up pretty well, Sergeant Thompson. I had a good example to follow, ma'am. What's next for you? Marcus smiled. I'm starting a non-profit to help homeless veterans get back on their feet. Going to call it Rivera's Promise, after David. He always said we should take care of each other no matter what. David would be proud. And so am I. That moment outside the memorial ceremony, when Marcus was pushed away and forgotten, had transformed into something beautiful. A reminder that recognition and respect can come from unexpected places, and that sometimes all it takes is one person willing to see past appearances to the heart of who someone really is. Today, Marcus Thompson runs a successful veteran outreach program that has helped hundreds of former soldiers find their way home. He never forgot the 6 words that changed his life, and he makes sure to say them to every veteran he meets. Thank you for your service, brother. Because sometimes being seen and acknowledged for who you truly are makes all the difference between despair and hope, between being forgotten and being remembered, between giving up and finding the strength to serve once more. In a world that often overlooks the quiet heroes among us, Marcus Thompson's story reminds us that respect and dignity should never be rationed based on appearances. Every veteran, every person who has served something greater than themselves deserves to be honored not just in ceremonies and speeches, but in the daily recognition of their worth and sacrifice. The next time you see someone who doesn't quite fit in, someone who looks forgotten or dismissed, remember Marcus Thompson. Remember that behind every weathered face might be a story of courage, sacrifice, and service that deserves respect. Remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply acknowledge someone's worth with 6 simple words that remind them they belong. Because in the end, we are all part of the same human family, all deserving of dignity, recognition, and the simple acknowledgement that our lives and our service matter. That's the true message of grateful stories like this one, where compassion triumphs over protocol, and where one person's willingness to see beyond appearances can transform not just a moment, but an entire life.